I have one another journey. Today's journey, our guest has come a long way from his tough childhood days and former life as a professional dancer, but he is now an inspirational relationship coach. Teaching has been one of his passions throughout his life, from teaching in Japan to Bangkok and all the way back. In 2006, he began studying the dynamics between men and women out of sheer curiosity, which many people often not touch upon because they like men, women, etc., etc. So this discovery spurred our guest to spend time researching and become too powerful a message to keep to himself. And his Project Equinox, which is I'm going to call the podcast Project Equinox, was created with the mission to share all the knowledge he had gained in the world. Nowadays, our guest would be considered in the third phase of his life, endeavoring to help change people's lives around the globe by equipping them with the tools to have excellent communications and healthy relationships. So, in advance, if there is bad language in this podcast, so what? It's natural. It's a podcast. It's been you, and I know some people may be offended. If you're offended, I'm sorry, but this is the way life is, and the way life is the way it is. But we welcome Andre to the journey.
Thank you, David. Good
You're
morning, good
welcome.
afternoon.
Good
It's
afternoon, good morning, good
yes.
day, whatever. Whatever time it is when you watch or listening to this.
Mm, whatever time it is.
Yes. So you heard how passionate I am about the openness about language.
Mm,
Language is the key thing that you don't have to self-restrain on because for so many times people like to self-restrain themselves because of obvious reasons.
sure.
The journey, I always believe, even when I edit, I don't edit much out unless I see a massive gap in
Mm.
something. But tell us your earliest memories before we get into the main crux of the conversation.
My earliest memories as a child.
Yeah. What
Well,
inspired you when you was growing up? What made you you?
ah, yeah, that story. It's not a fun story. I tell the story. It takes me back every time, obviously. I could tell you I was born like sort of sideways, and what I meant by that, it was a feeling. I have memories of me toddling down the hallway at my house towards the kitchen, and not feeling welcome. Like, what is that, right? But I'm 2 years old, maybe, and I can't really. All I could do is pick up, the vibe, but I don't have words or thoughts, right? I'm 2 years old. I don't have vocabulary. I don't have language. But it was a palatable sort of like something is huh not working here, or some version of that, right? As the feeling of it. Fast forward to 5 years old, and it's interesting because in my work I do a lot of psychology work and trauma release on my clients because we're all traumatized in some form, some way, some form, some version of in the formative years between 5 and 11. But we all come to most of us is at 5 years old where logic and words and thinking is possible, and then your feelings about life or things, right? So like at 5, this is when we go shoot, these two come together, and now we have a different layer of consciousness. So at 5 years old, with the circumstance of my life, I have four siblings. There's five of us, two parents. I realized, and I remember, I could tell you the moment I was sitting on the stairs after my brothers didn't want to play with me, and but wanted to play with my little brother, and it was always the same thing. Like I'm outside of this family. I'm not in this family. I'm not. I don't. And I realized I didn't belong in this family. Like at 5 years old, like really strange like thought, right? But I saw the world, and it kind of, oh, I get it. I don't belong here. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. This was my go-to. This is where I realized. So, and that is at 5 is terrifying, right? It's just terrifying. But okay, now, so what happened is it kind of turned my awareness and I call it my inner radar kind of outward. I started watching the world, trying to understand how that it's even possible. And so then I became that guy. Like so I started when I started going to school, I was watching everyone. I was the guy in the corner watching everyone, trying to just And then I became fascinated with the human condition, because like this guy's a, he's got swag. This guy's a dork. This guy's a brainiac. This girl's slutty. This girl is like really uptight. Like you're like, how do people get to be like them? Right?
Yeah.
To me, it was fascinating. So that's how this whole thing started with me. I'm just curious about the human condition, trying to understand my own life, my own bullshit, and then kind of tapping into other people. So that's how this whole thing started. Like my memory, and then I found out later on that my mother didn't want me. It was an accident, and that kind of transgressed through my entire existence. So interesting, but not
Yeah.
kind of fun. Not
So,
fun or easy.
so at a young age, your life was shitty per se because you knew that you was unwanted. You was I'm not saying you was loved, but it's just like it felt like you was a big mistake.
Yep, like I'm not supposed to be here. Like there was this, like I was born with that feeling, and then I continued being. They treated me in the same way. My mother, like just with literally just. You know what I mean? But love my
Yeah,
little brother, overwhelmed my little brother with love, like 3 years after me. But I was interesting, right? Weird. It's
yeah,
very weird. But so I became quite resilient. Obviously, I raised myself on some level. I took care of myself in every way. I never asked for help. I couldn't. There was nobody to help. So it was a kick in the head, but it also, there's a lot of gifts, on the other side of all of that crap, right? There's a
yeah,
lot of there's this like resilience and strength and empathy and love and awareness and connectivity and be able to sense people, feel people. Like there's a lot of goodies on the other side of trauma. And the people who push through their trauma and get to have typically much better life than people who don't,
yeah.
because we're all traumatized. So,
Yeah, and trauma can come in a lot of factors. That's what I
mm,
was going to highlight is because people often think it's one kind of trauma when you're growing up, but there is many hidden traumas that sometimes not everyone can vocalize. Like, I'm saying this for example, you could be f- sexually assaulted when you're younger.
yep,
You don't talk about that when you're younger because it's a shameful thing. It's like, why would
yep,
you want to admit that? When you're older, it gets more difficult. I'm not saying it's a difficult intentional, but it's the thing that's built into you, and you end up being very angry, very
yep.
upset, very like, do I deserve
Resentful,
it? Yeah,
like because there's a loss of innocence in that, right? Childhood is supposed to be about being carefree, discovery, excitement, fun, innocence. Do you know what I mean? Being protected and feeling safe in the world. When people, like, so in my world, like there's abandonment issues that, there's like four layers of trauma, like abandonment issues, neglect issues, right? Being neglected in every way, if I, emotionally, physically, like, and then abuse issues, right? Emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. So some people have all of them, which is horrible, right? But we all have something. And
yeah,
interestingly enough, like sexual abuse sounds like the worst. In my world, I think abandonment issues are probably more damaging long term. Like, because they how do I put this? Like you're the people who are supposed to take in care of you and love you, like just don't. Like it
yeah,
breaks your heart. It's different than being molested. Do you know what I mean? That sort
mm,
of takes your spirit on some level, and that breaks your innocence. But to be abandoned emotionally, to be neglected emotionally, like these are the things people just, and they end up
and
with conclusions
and
about
and then
themselves.
and then you saying about sexual abuse per se. When you do get sexually abused, in the way it happens, and I'm not saying it happens for good reasons, because far from it, it's never good.
No,
But if you do come out with about what happened to you at a young age, yes, you do feel abandoned. So it does interlink with each other, I believe.
for sure. For sure, these things cross over completely because abandonment will go into neglect. Do you know what I mean? That's another layer. You'll experience abandonment through neglect. You'll abandonment through abuse. You'll like, so they kind of cross over. Overall, what happened is what we end up doing as children, and we forget that we did this or thought that, but we create a belief about ourselves, the world, life and people, 5 years old, typically. Sometimes it's four, sometimes it's six, right? But typically five. So, and kind of, like mine was, I don't belong here. And so that became the filter through everything that the vision, the reality of the world for me was like, my reality was that. Do you know what I mean? And so we
Yeah.
all have a different reality per how, because in the end, what happens is we conclude if we weren't loved right, it's always this, it's through parents, it's little kids. When you're not loved right, whichever way it shows up, we take that personally and we kind of turn on ourselves. So then we end up believing I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough. For mine, I don't belong here, right? Um, Men are terrible, women are just not to be, whatever. Like 5 years old, we make a decision. It becomes the first impact on your nervous system and your subconscious. And then you, as humans, that's what we do. Then we go and prove it to the world because we want to be right. Our brain wants to be right. So if I'm not lovable, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you go, see, again, you're going to attract people who don't love you, right? This is the loop, I call it, right? And people typically wake up in their 30s like, I can't do this. What the hell is going on, right? It's a trauma of a 5 year old that you keep repeating because you go, see, because your subconscious wants you to be right, right?
Yeah.
Like even down to a point of, again, it's down to your thinking. And your thinking becomes your belief, and your belief becomes your life and your destiny. It's something simple, and people get that, right? So if I say to you, let me give you my email address, and you go, hold on, I got to write it down because I'm not going to be remember, right? Your
Mm.
subconscious goes, absolutely. You're never gonna remember. Like, and you become that person like who has to write everything down because you out loud are declaring that you can't remember. You won't remember.
Mm.
So whatever it is you believe, your subconscious goes, okay, as you please. Sure, there it is. Men are all creeps. There it is. Oh, like there's another one. You're surrounded with 100 good guys, but you'll find the creep, right? Like you're surrounded with like healthy, beautiful, like normal women, and if women are crazy in your head, right, you're attracted. So it's a tragedy to be human
Yeah.
when you
And
don't
so
understand that part.
And then it goes into the self-validation because I know for so many people, and I'm saying this from my experience, you have to self-validate yourself, just to
Right,
make yourself feel worthy, to make yourself, in my case, man-like, because that's the way it is. I'm not saying it's the right way, but I have to
right,
self-validate myself. I know
right,
people who have to self-validate themselves just to make them feel like it's bad, but I have to do this. You believe in me? Yes, yes. It's like,
right, right,
and
right,
then you
right.
get people, why are you wearing that? And I do have people tell me this, and I've told this to many people myself. It's like, why wear a badge saying I am when you just have to be yourself without saying I am?
Right. No, it's it's the psychology of humans is fascinating, and but it's when you decode it, like the mechanism, it's like I'm not sure why it's like this for humans because animals don't do this. Animals that get traumatized, they get chased, they're about to die, right? Because it's always a survival instinct. And what do? They shake it off, literally,
Hmm.
right? And then they're good. Like it doesn't stick on the nervous system.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Humans, we stick, and then the belief that we did at five, we made at five, we carry the rest of our lives. You know, like what kind of design is that? That's talk about bullshit,
Yeah.
right? So when I get to heaven, I'm gonna go, really? What's that about? Like, what? Explain to me how that's helpful. It's not working, but that's how we are, right? This is
And the trauma, even as you get older, if it happens in your teens, it's the same principle because your mind is so immature sometimes. Even if you think you're older, your mind is still
yep,
immature. It's still maturing. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, but at the same time, it's a way of coping again, even when you get older.
absolutely, absolutely. And my world is the longer you go without cleaning that up, the more ingrained you are in it. And if you don't do your work, I call it, get your shit together, like dig in, release your trauma, decide what life you want, and then go for it, as opposed to being triggered by all this crap that you believe about yourself that isn't true. It's just a conclusion of how we
Yeah.
just a conclusion about how we were treated, really. If you don't get your shit together before like you're 35, 40 years old, you're doomed to continue so it's gonna be the rest of your life. I
Yeah.
have ladies clients who are late 30s or so, and they come at me with, I never had a boyfriend past the 3 months. Nobody wants to marry me. I've never felt safe. Da 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 da, and all the way down to believing it. Think about the belief again. Like maybe I'm not supposed to be happy with anybody. Maybe I'm supposed to be a lonely old lady. Like not everybody is supposed to have the good life. Like if they start, and this is when I go crazy. I'm like, stop, 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 stop. There's no way that you were born to be miserable and die alone. But if you keep saying that, you will. If you keep believing that, you will, right? So, like, what is it that you want ultimately? I know where you're stuck, but what is it you want? And everybody wants the same thing. They want companionship, they want relationships, they want marriages, they want children if they're young enough, right? Everybody wants the same thing, both men and women, by the way.
Yeah. And
But
as they equal.
all of our bullshit gets in the way. And again, if you don't get it together before you turn about 40, you're doomed. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not 100%, but like it's pretty much calculated. Like the odds are you're done.
Yeah. And I know from my hidden self of how I coped over the years. I've had to grow up on a lot of things, and I had to get my shit literally together because
Yep.
of the fact that I was grown up, and I could have thought it's this way. I could have, and I do. I have my days where I feel like it still, but I do actually try and keep it together just to make it strong. And I am 41, so I am past that threshold of
Yep.
40.
Yep.
So I've matured over the years to get to that. And
Absolutely.
yes, I do have, like I said, I do have my bad days, but I don't.
Right.
I try not to constantly think about it out loud because I
Right.
think, do I need to? No.
Right. But does it drive you? Ooh, that's what you want to look at, right? Is it driving me? Am I continuing to believe that I'm whatever it is that you think that I think I am, as opposed to this is not the life that I want. I want this life, and I want to get there. I have a client, a young man. He's well, 30, he just turned 40, but we started together when he was much younger. And get this, let's talk about like unfair. He was sexually and physically abused by both his parents, mom and dad, separately, constantly.
Mm,
So he used to beat up on him, saying you're too much like your mom, and I don't know how that crossed into sexuality or molestation. And same with her, she would beat him up because he was too much like his dad, and then would become inappropriate with him. Like so, the two people who were supposed to make him feel safe and protect him are like violating him physically and sexually, right? This guy should be dead in a ditch with a needle in his arm. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
these are like terrible, terrible injuries. Like they're worse than any that I've heard. I've heard worse, but this one on both sides. Anyway, he should be dead. He should be like, addicted to all kinds of shit and just out of here. But his spirit, and this
It,
is really where
mhm,
it's like this is where you want to tap into if you feel that life is desperately not gonna work your way. His spirit is like, forget this crap. He used to say to me, I refuse to let that shit be my story.
mm,
This was my beginning. This was horrible. I'll never get over it, but I'm working through it. I'm pushing through it. And he's fighting for his life. And he's doing fantastic now at 40. Like he started with me when he was 34, I believe. And he started with me, but he also had a therapist. He had two men's group that he was part of. Like just put himself in the fire to fight for his life. And
yeah.
now he's a successful writer and works for the government. Live in San Diego in paradise. Like he's making like again his thinking, and again that's really what's important. Hit his head. I refuse to let that shit be my story.
Mm,
I'm here to do something, and he's inspired to write, and he's really really good at it. But again, he's also very good at it because he's been through so much pain. He's got a lot of material and juice behind, right? Like a passion and empathy and pain, right? Writers come from pain often. So he's rewriting his story. And
mm,
like I said, for most, you'd be dead.
I agree.
Most would just give up.
Mm. So going into your work, and this is the main thing what we're going to talk about, your main work.
Yes.
Can you explain? And I'm going to use the podcast title, and you put it in the bio. It's called Project Equinox.
Mhm.
I'm liking the name of that. That's why I chose it as the podcast title. Tell us about that.
Well, the equinox, the actual equinox is the perfect middle point between day and light. right? It's not dark enough yet to be dark, but it's not light enough to be light anymore. So the equinox is sort of the balance between light and dark, day and night, masculine and feminine, men, women, right? So I thought it was clever. That's why I chose that name. Again, the young man that I just told you about, is the one actually that helped me come up with that name.
Mm,
So he was, yeah. So that was where that came from. Project Equinox with Andre Parody. Um, but whether you Google me under my personal name and or Project Equinox, like the whole thing will show up. And so people who are curious and want to poke around at what I'm up to, simple.
and they can find out more about you, and we discuss that at the very
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
So, talk about you, because we've been talking about, you know, personal beginnings, and we're talking about, others that have dealt with trauma, but talk about you now and talk about what you want to talk about.
Well, I think every time I do a lot of podcasting, we talked about this, and the podcast always has a structure, like a reason. Do you know what I mean? Education, inspiring stories, resilient stories, how you go from that to that stories,
Mm,
and or to really the work of, my work is all about relationship dynamics and helping men and women build healthy, loving, long-term relationships. By the way, it's not only a heterosexual relationship, man, man, women, women. The people who succeed in having long-term relationships all do the same thing, and they know how to do it seemingly naturally. There's maybe 10% of the population who sort of have an intuition and instinct about how to come together and build something healthy. The rest of us have to learn, and that's my work, like helping people who are completely baffled with this dynamic, because everything that's out there is now upside down and sideways. Everything that was normal is now stupid, and everything that's ridiculous is now the new normal. And we wonder why it's not working. Well, I can tell you exactly why it's not working. I see it every day. I hear about it every day. The stories that I hear that I so yeah, so my story comes from really resilience. Like, how do you take your pain, use that to literally, I call it jet fuel, to launch yourself into the life that you want. There
mm,
is no way that people are born to be miserable and just die. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I refuse to believe any of that. So, and if you notice in the world, the people who are the most successful in whichever way you look at it, right? Whether it's whatever, people who are very successful come from horrible, horrible beginnings, but they fought through it. Oprah Winfrey, if you know her story, she should be dead. She should be completely dead. She should have killed herself in her 20s, like with the setup that she had. She was turning tricks at 13. She had a baby at 14 from a trick, like, and the baby died, right? Poverty, abused, like but look at what she did. Richest black woman in the world.
yeah.
That's a hell of a story, right? So if you look at the people who have created some huge things, often come from ridiculous beginnings. And I think that's the point. That's the resilience that kind of becomes a jet fuel to climb over it, right? Like, again, if your spirit doesn't give up, what can you accomplish? Who can you
Yeah.
be?
Yeah,
Choose.
it's like the shit eater bad, from what I
God,
understand. And
crazy. That story is insane. Like that story is insane. And most, like I said, uh, yeah, the people who've done some huge things that seems to have a good life or life easy. I mean, if you look back, I'm part of two. I'm a published author, Amazon #1, on two different books that are a combination of, what do you call it? There's 32 people in the one group. The other one's got 60, maybe almost 80 people. And these are stories of people's resilience. People like started from horrible beginnings and became successful, right? Inspiring stories. And it's all the same. They have a life on the other side that was unthinkable from where they came from. And again, that's, I think, the human adventure, the human spirit story is, the more you get your ass kicked in childhood, you either like drop dead, get addicted to all kinds of shit and just end up dead, or you fight for it.
mm.
And I always say, like, what else do you have to do all day? Fight! Damn it, fight!
And even if you're male, female, that
Yep.
is the way of life. You have to fight because that is where you're. stamping your timestamp on the world. Because if you don't fight, you're just a shadow, and
Yeah.
no one will take notice of that.
Yep. And find yourself. You know, you lost, find yourself. You know, some of the guys, I'm at the gym every day, 5 days a week, and the guy was telling me about his friend who he introduced me to, and like the guy's 28 years old, he has no job, he just got his girlfriend pregnant, and we're like shaking our heads, going, "You completely fucked. Like you just fuck yourself, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Unfuck yourself, dumbass. Like, it's in your hands." You know what I mean? As opposed to collapsing into he's a victim now, and I can't believe she's pregnant. Well, she didn't get pregnant by herself.
Yeah,
Like you're making some stupid, ridiculous choices. How come you don't work? Well, it's hot out there. Really? No kidding. Really? So the rest of us have it easy. So you're the only one who has it hard, dude. Right? Like, and when we do men's work, because I do a lot of men's work, right? We literally refuse to let them play victim. Period. And get it all back in his face. Like, what are you going to do to get yourself unfucked? You need to unfuck yourself. Okay, you're fucked. Got it. We've all been there. Go. Like, you have more challenge than us. I don't know. That's relative to how you see it, but it's in your hands to fucking get your life together. What else do you have to do all day?
Yeah.
Go. Sorry. Like that's why.
It's okay. It's just like the way there's a song, and I don't know if you heard of it, Ash Nico.
Not sure.
There's a song lyric in one of her songs. I don't know the actual song, but it says, "Am I fuckable enough?"
Right. Right.
And her attitude, the way she sings, and I met her in concert. She's a good person. She's really passionate, and when you hear her singing, you hear the real passion in her being herself.
Right.
And when I first heard that lyric, it's like, "Am I fuckable?" And I was like, "Yeah." I'm not saying I would personally do that, but
Right.
it's just a statement to say, "Look at me, am I fuckable enough? Do I care what you think?" No. And
Amen.
that's
Right.
and that's the passion I feel from her singing, is because she is a passionate singer. Yes, she's got probably hidden from herself. That's
Of course.
why when she wrote these songs, there's a hidden meaning to it. And I always do believe that. If there's a song I listen to and I say there's a song lyric that I like, it's like there's a hidden meaning to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it typically comes from like an authentic source of like I'm gonna share this, right? This like this the songs that really resonate that touch us. It's not because they're random. It's not just the words, right? There's energy behind them,
Yeah. It's like
and
all
that's
good singers, I'm not just saying Ashley is a modern one, but there was song lyrics back in the day.
yeah,
Like, I'm not saying they were good or bad, but Smoking and Bandits for 24 years been living next door to Alice. Who the fuck's Alice? But at the end of the day, Smoking and Bandit must have knew who Alice was for living 24 years next door to her.
yep, 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 yep,
And that's just a quirky one. So I've gone from the actual modern day to a quirky one, but Smoking Bandit must have had a good point. 24 years, and then
yep,
Ozzy Osbourne, a great singer in his
yep.
own element. He doesn't swear much, only when he's on the TV and when he's doing things, but there must have been something to make him the way he is. And
Amen.
everyone says, yes, it's drugs that fucked him up, but
Well, yeah, you
but
know,
but that's a neutral answer, because obviously I got to keep impartial into that, and I don't want to get into trouble for that.
no,
But so the way it is, everyone's got a way of coping in life. Everyone has
that's
their
it.
own, like you said, everyone's male, everyone's female, everyone's they, them, and I'm trying to not genderize it in the specific, but you have those sets of people who do identify as
Mm.
they, it's like, even if you identify as a pronoun, it's still you.
Right? It changes nothing really
Yeah.
in my world.
And I know transgender people who do identify as they, them, and theirs, but I don't hold it against them.
Mm. No, totally, totally. I
I
think, I
see
think,
I see them as them. I see say if it's a man, I see him as him. I see a girl as a.
Yeah.
So I try to keep it neutral, and that's how I see it. And relationship, you say about building a strong relationship. When you're in a relationship, you hear the term, the female wears the trousers. But at the same time, the man still wears the trousers. The
Right.
females wear trousers nowadays because how often do you see females wear skirts and dresses and
Yep. No, I mean it's part of the cultural, like we put women to work in the 60s, to liberate them from the kitchen, okay, right? That you're better than being somebody's slave and or like kids will ruin your life. You have to step out in the world like a man, be productive like a man, fight like a man, have sex like a man, make money like a man, and then you understand why men don't want anything to do with you. Not because it's not you're not valuable, but because these women are very masculine. We raise all of them to be masculine, strong, independent, powerful from the get-go, from the age of 3, right? And not realizing that masculine men are not interested in masculine women. Masculine men don't want any of that shit. Masculine men are only attracted and want to take care of only feminine energy women. So we have a world where all the women are butch and boss babes and then take no shit from no man. And men are like, okay, see ya. And then at 35, they started to come at me like, what's wrong with me? I have everything. I have a house, I have a job, I have money, I have no maintenance. How come nobody wants to date me? I go, because, honey, you're inside out. You're the man. And you expect a man to be bigger and stronger than you, make more money, be smarter. There's like 2% of those guys at this point. Okay, maybe 10. So you shrunk the odds of you finding above you, better than you, don't exist very much. So the guys that want you, you don't want.
yeah,
Saying the guys that you want don't want you either because they don't want that. So this is a shit show out there. It's terrible.
it's
So
very shit.
the reality
It's a very shitty reality.
is terrible, right? So and that's the reality. So what's happening now? Are you ready for this? I'm a
Yeah.
king of statistics. I love statistics. Again, it kind of takes it all home. Morgan Stanley, the bankers, right? International companies,
Mm.
investment companies, they they do surveys to look into the future to see what the next money trend is going to be. What's going to be what people buy in 10 years from now? Where should they advise their clients to put their money for future investment building, right?
Mm.
So they went into the, like, again, these are not politicians, these are bankers, right? Collecting data to help their clients. So they look at a culture. Are you ready for this? This is not pretty. And ladies, I'm sorry, but you need to wake up to the lemon that you were sold. So it's now the statistic is by 2030-ish, like, because it's only 6 years from now. So I'm thinking maybe 30, 35 is probably more accurate. But again, I did do the numbers. I'm just watching what's happening. Their prediction is by 2030, half of women in a world, like and they're starting in the United States mostly, but half the women in the United States between the age of 25 and 45 will be single and childless. Half. Do you think that's going to make women happy when they realize they're abandoned and alone and have no children, no family, nobody to take care of them? I could tell you what it looks like. I have, a bunch of clients that are that. They're trying to undo their belief around that. But so this was coming. This was coming. 100 miles an hour in the name of what? Freedom? Feminism? Yeah, that was a huge lemon. I mean, it just went too far, right? We've flipped the script. Men are supposed to expect it to be sweet, sensitive, and vulnerable, but still have you traditional and pay for everything. Oh, but don't tell me, don't try to control me. Tell me how to. So men is still expected to be traditional, and we now raise women to refuse to be traditional.
Yeah.
Okay, so wonder why you're lonely and alone and nobody wants to date you because that is against nature. It's literally all I'm teaching is nature. It's
Yeah.
nature, psychology, and science. The chemistry of our bodies and how different we are. We yin yang. We're masculine, feminine. We're black, white. We're in opposition to come together to support a system of building a life, a family together. That's nature. So when you flip the script, it goes to shit and everyone's confused. And it should be
Mm,
better because equality and 50-50. It should be better. It's not. I mean, it's okay for business, but not for relationships. It's a shit
yeah.
show.
And
Just
it
saying.
does, and it makes the relationship, like you said, shitty. It makes it more
It doesn't
difficult.
work. It doesn't work. It doesn't. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. And I do understand totally, it's like myself, I've been in a situation, where I thought I couldn't get out of it. I got out of it. I'm in a better place now. But at the same time, I was feeling shitty because I was in that situation.
Hmm.
I got out of it because I felt better for getting out of it. I got the strength to get out of it.
What else do you
In
have to
the
do all day,
in
right?
in the beginning, I couldn't
Right. Right. No,
because
fair enough.
I just felt like I had to prove myself. I had to say I can, I can, I can.
Right.
And I was lying to myself constantly. I did feel shitty. I felt low as anything. I was in, I'm not saying this to be nasty about myself, but I was in a country that, that I felt like I couldn't escape because there was no way out.
Yep.
And because of my scare factor that I drilled into myself so much, I scared myself shitless, thinking I can't get away, I can't get away. I got away from it. I'm where
Yeah.
I am now.
Beautiful.
So I'm
Well,
proud to say I can do it. I can
right.
believe in myself.
And that took, courage, time.
It took 5 years.
Yeah, that's not, on the timeline. If you look at your timeline, right, with the day you were born to the day you're gonna die, 5 years is a dot,
Yes,
right? It's
exactly.
worth doing the fucking work. Otherwise, what you get sucked in all kinds of addiction, right? Drugs, alcohol, food, gambling, sex, right? Just to numb yourself to make yourself feel better, moment
Mm,
to moment, right? And that doesn't make for a quality of life. Like you know what my addiction is? Dopamine. I go to the gym. I take all my frustration, my anxiety out on the weights, right? Clears my brain, stabilizes my hormones, right? Builds my testosterone that stabilizes my entire nervous system as a man. Do you know what I mean? And then I can
mm,
think straight. I get actually get be creative because I'm grounded. I'm not a ball of nerve. So that my hook is dopamine,
mm,
not cocaine, dopamine. So those some of the hooks you have to find your hooks, right? Some people get dopamine by running every morning. Like there's ways to get addicted to a chemistry or the things that actually are helping and are good for you, as opposed to kind of trying to hide the pain, with substance abuse or all kinds of or whatever. Like people to get sucked in. Addictions always start with something that's fun. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with drinking, but if you become an alcoholic, your life is screwed. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with little drugs here and there, but if you get addicted to it because you're in such pain and want to numb out, so the relief becomes a problem, right? That's not a good hook.
It's like I learnt this from my mother, and I know I don't get on best terms with her. And even though I don't get on with her best terms, I still love her. I don't talk to her, but I still love her.
Yeah, no, I get it.
She said to me when I was growing up because she smoked, she said, I don't do drugs, I don't do drinking. So smoking's the vice for me. I said, yeah, but that kills you. She said, yeah, but I got to die somehow.
But I mean, like I said, justify it whichever way, right? Or more,
And so she
yeah,
only does smoking, and I don't judge her for that. Even though she
yeah,
always used to say I judged her for it, I never judged her for it because I've been with partners who smoke. So I,
right, right.
but the fact is, if you don't do drugs, you don't do smoking, you don't do drinking, something natural's got to be there. And you said dopamine in your case. There's adrenaline. There's
Yes,
the buzz factor of just doing something by walking and doing something, making
yeah.
that difference.
Go walk around in nature. Watch how that changes your mood.
Exactly.
Just seriously. So you don't have to like be a gym rat like I am. You don't
It's
have to like
like you've got
run
see the
marathon.
background. You see the background to what I'm using today. I'm not
Right.
actually at the Northern Lights, but if you
Right.
look at it, you see them moving around. I'm
Yep.
actually at peace because it's up in nature. And for the
Yep.
people who's listening to this as
Yep.
audio, it's a screen background of the Northern Lights
Yep.
because I do change the background. I could change it to another effect, but then I'd be
right?
being inifyified because it's all.
You could have a background of New York City and get all stressed out looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. So why have a picture of a busy,
Sure, intersection, like the 101 freeway in Los Angeles. Hello.
well, there is actually a background on Zoom. It's not moving, but it's a background of the San Francisco, what, the bridge.
Yeah, first the San Francisco Bay Bridge. Yeah.
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 Why
I
do
mean,
I know it's calm, it's not moving, but you just sense because you then
dude,
start thinking over times like that's a busy place. I don't want to be stuck on this bridge.
I'm
But
telling you. So, there's a lot of we create, I guess, as drug, alcohol, sex, and all that stuff. Food will create a chemistry in our bodies that soothes, but there's a lot of ways to get chemistry in your bodies that soothes your soul, soothes your nervous system, right?
mm,
Dopamine comes with endorphins after the fact, right? Endorphins are feel-good hormones. Like there's like just I often help men, especially, use their bodies to alter their chemistry, their depression, their low self-esteem, right? Like I had a kid that I worked with a few years back. He was deaf, so tall, blonde, handsome, but broken in his mind. He's deaf. There's something wrong with him. So he was outside of society and culture in the world. He couldn't step in. He was broken. Like he was, he was. I met him. He was 27 years old, and he was still living in the bedroom that he was born in with his parents. Like they cuddled him because they also felt guilty that they produced a broken child, right? So his entire reality is I'm broken. So it doesn't fit in anywhere. Ends up coming to my gym. And I remember thinking the first time I saw him, like, what is wrong with this dude? Like, he was so awkward. He couldn't look at anybody. He would look at the floor. Just being in public would freak him out because he spent his entire life in his bedroom on his computer. And I remember, like, I could feel the energy. He was far away from me. He was 30 feet away from me. And I'm like, wow, something is really wrong here. He came in with a trainer that he started training with in the private gym in his building. Anyway, so the trainer said, we need to go in public. We need to be in the world. We need to go to a real gym, right? You need to get out there. So kind of pull them into the gym. Anyway, my point is about 3 or 4 months later, he stopped coming with his trainer, but he came on his own because he was kind of getting comfortable with being in that space and right, blah, 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 nature. And I said to him, I'm like, he looked in my eyes, and I remember I saw the pain in his soul. I could see the pain in his soul. Like there was a veil over his face, like in front of his eyes. Like he was so confused, he was so lost, he was so broken, he was so, according to him. And so I said to him, because that's part of how I saved myself when I was a professional dancer, right? The chemistry of your body's working, flexing, dancing, kicking, right? There's a lot of muscle activity, a lot of good dopamine, a lot of good endorphins, and it
mm.
raises your mood with the music. So I use my body to fix my brain, and I know exactly how that happened now. So I said to him, I'm like, you know what? If you come here every day, Monday to Friday, 11 a.m., I'm here. I'll train you if you show up. And guess what? He fucking showed up.
I love
So
that.
5 days a week, I whoop his ass. I whoop his fucking ass. Excuse my French, right? Yeah, he's never first like I took care of him, right? He had somewhere to meet, so he felt safe and all that stuff. But I have to tell you something crazy is that within about 9 months, this guy who walked around with this, like upper back like this and kind of shamed to be standing in this space, is now standing up straight. He has no choice. His back is pulled back. Like I just, he's just straighten up his spine just by the work. But it changed his chemistry. And my favorite part, he's very mousy, invisible, awkward, all that shit. Within 9 months, at one point he showed up, he was late at the gym. And there's a girl next to me in a different rack. And he shows up, he's in his street clothes, he's actually well dressed because that all kicked in. Like all of a sudden he cared about his appearance and about his clothes because he's in public. Anyway, he walks in, he goes, I'm sorry I'm late, I'm just gonna go change, da 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 da, right? Because he speaks perfectly. Um, and then he takes off for the changing room. And the girl sitting next to me, who was also a regular, she's seen him for months since he started showing up. She knows me very well. She says to me, get this, she's like, what's going on with him? I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, like I found myself very attracted to him today. What's going on? Like, his chemistry, his vibe, his energy changed. He kind of landed in his body in the sense that he could, like, there was a certain like owning and knowing himself and working at like by whip, and his chemistry changed. And all of a sudden, there's a man standing here instead of a mouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, so I remember that was to me, I saw it happen slowly, but for a girl to notice, and she knew him on a regular basis, I'm very attracted to him today. What's going on with him? I'm like, oh, he's landing into his body. His energy is
And he
becoming.
got his shit together.
He fought for it. He showed up every fucking day. For 5 days a week, he would show up and would whip his ass. And I've been talking I whooped his ass. I would make him like collapse on purpose because that's the edge of getting the chemistry to kick in harder, right? You
Yeah.
have to get to the edge. So again, he didn't do drugs, alcohol, and sex and food. He did that. Anyway, so I could do this all day long
Yeah. And I know we could.
for
But
sure.
podcast can't be that long unless it's a live stream.
Right.
So going into the future,
Yep.
obviously you've spoken about how you're passionate about certain beliefs, and I love how you're passionate about your belief and helping make that difference because that's what I'm doing for the podcast.
Yep.
When I
Yep.
listen to people's journeys, I,
Yep.
listen to them and I say, yeah, people, and I don't always say this to guests, but I do say, you got your shit together. When I
Yep.
do listen to them, yes, they may be passionate, and I love the passion in people. Yes, they may go on, and I think, wow. But at the end of the day, you know what you're talking about, and you are living the definition what I go by, which is you aspire, you inspire, you, I'm trying to remember, it's aspire, educate, inspire, observe, and understand.
Yep. Yep.
And I use if you notice, I use the vowels there.
Yeah.
Aspire, educate, inspire, observe, and
Yep.
understand. You do all that.
Yep. Yeah.
For
I
the
mean,
future, do you
for
think
this.
that will get better? Do you think it'll be the same? Do you feel like
Oh,
people, if they get their shit together, they will do it?
I mean, I do it every day. I mean, that's my work. You know what I mean? So every day I talk to people, I help people, I put them through, you know, the fire, if you want to put it this way, gently into getting to the other side, kind of remove the trauma and then step into what they want to, the life they know they were born to live. So there's a spirit to the ones who show up. They're very spirited. They refuse to lay down, just like the boy I told you earlier, he refused to lay down. They're gonna fight for it. These people get the life that they want, and I help them do this. But the big mission for me, even though it's very, very satisfying to watch people change in front of you, right? For me, the big mission that God calling it's my job as a disruptor to spread this to the masses. There is hope. There is ways to build healthy, loving relationships that last. That's my work. I do it every day. But what's out in the culture right now is keeping everybody from doing that.
Yeah,
So that's the God mission is not, like I said, my business is, I'm busy because, everyone's confused, everyone's struggling. I'm in Los Angeles. It's another layer, but most of my clients are online and all over the place, all over the world, even. Um, so I'm doing is really spreading the word. It is doable. It is fixable. You can have healthy long-term relationships. You can build families that last, all that stuff. But you have to step away from the culture and all the bullshit that's out there and so many layers and find out who you are and what you want. You want to be, a boss babe entrepreneur? Beautiful. You know, are you going to be married with kids? Probably not. Just saying. That one goes with the other. That's fine. If that's what you want, good for you. But if you want kids and family and feel safe as a woman in the world, a good man will help you with that naturally, right? So who do you want to be?
yeah,
Who do you want to be? But like I said, spirit, these the pe is the people that are spirited that kind of push through and conquer and go for their lives. And so that's my work. But again, I wanted it nationwide. I want a world movement eventually. I want it as big as Tony Robbins. Actually, I want it Oprah big, like Oprah big. That's kind of a place to, because this all actually is very easy to teach. So it's easy to learn. It's just nobody talks about it. Nobody knows
Yeah.
how to do it.
And
People keep
and it's
talking about
break
equality and
and it's
50-50.
breaking that taboo to actually talk about it. And you say
Yeah.
about the Oprah effect, that's what it is.
And the people that come, yeah.
She had it
And
shitty. She
yeah.
made it big.
Yep.
That's how I see it. You know probably had it shitty.
Yep.
You wanted to make it big now to make that timestamp.
You know what I mean? It's like, and that's, I think that's the point of life, period, is to get your shit together. And some of us have the harder beginnings. Okay, so what?
Shit
You're gonna let
happens.
go, right? Shit happens. You can let go and die. Okay, if you want. But the ones who don't want to do that and fight for their lives, bring it, you know. But yeah, the big dream again is a world movement and to really kind of recalibrate into what works. Like sometimes I talk to feminists and they're really trying to hate on me. Like you're trying to take us back to the 50s, barefoot and pregnant. I'm like, that's not even close to anything that I talk about. So shut up. That's not what I'm saying. That's not at all what I'm saying. However, there is a more traditional frame around which we could build modern relationships. That's what I'm
Mm,
teaching.
yeah,
And again, if you want traditional men, these men expect the man will not bend. They want traditional women. So if you used to be a traditional woman, you're probably going to become a client of mine eventually.
yeah,
Because by the time they come to me, they're ready. They're like, okay, I've done all this stuff that's not working. I'm not happy. I make money doesn't make me happy. I'm lonely. I'm tired. I want to lean back, but now I have a mortgage in the car. I can't lean back. I'm forced to go. I'm like, congratulations, you bought the lemon.
yeah,
Now, it's I'm not shaming anybody for doing that because it's a cultural tidal wave, right? It's very difficult to resist the tidal wave. Um, but if that doesn't make you happy, let's go.
yeah.
Let's go.
And there's a hashtag I've been using a lot for the last year as well. It's just take no crap.
Right?
Because
But
I always say that to, I say to a certain individual and I like make them laugh. It's like take no crap.
yep,
And they ask me what and why. And I know they've had past trauma and it's not my place to
yeah.
talk about it on the podcast, but I know they've been through a lot. And up to the
No, for
point
sure.
up to the point when they first met me, I knew they were taking a lot of crap. And
Right.
I felt bad because they were taking that crap. And I was like,
Right.
why are you taking it? And they just like, because I'm used to it. I'm used to it. And even now, they still, in their own right mind, still say, I'm used to it. And I'm like, no, you moved on. You're not in that crap now. But
Yeah.
so I try and retrain their thinking, but not intentionally. But at the same time, I know they got potential.
Right. No, absolutely. Like, you
But
know, and
because,
that's
but because of that self-doubt,
ta-da. Or the thought, right? I'm not
yeah.
good enough. I can't do this. I'm not capable. I don't have the tools. I don't have the knowledge. I'm not the smart. No, bullshit. Stop, 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 stop. What is it you
And
want? What is it
yeah.
you want? What's that
And
look like?
I do
Let's go.
support them. I support what they want, but
Yeah.
they have to believe in themselves, which I know they do at times, and I know they will do.
Right. Yep.
So,
It's a
obvi-
journey.
obviously, people would want to talk about things with you personally. Is there any
Mm.
way they can get in contact with you?
Actually, I have two gifts for you listeners. I have two gifts. It's because I told you earlier, I do a lot of podcasting. I'm trying to spread the word and kind of like put a dent in the belief system that's out there that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't work. So, but I noticed there's two types of listeners that come on podcasts. The first one, and you'll self-identify if you're listening. The first one are people who kind of like, I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm not sure this is working. I'm not really like, so they're looking for information. They're pokers, right? They're poking in information. So if you're an information seeker, you're just starting your journey into this, understanding if anything I said kind of resonated, but you want some. So I'm going to send you directly to my email. So if you go to Andre Coaching, the number one at Gmail, my name, Andre Coaching, the word coaching, COACHING, number one at Gmail, and in the subject box you write Irresistible Book. This is for the ladies, it's a free gift. It's a workbook that I wrote. It's 30 pages or so. It said the five feminine qualities high value men find absolutely irresistible. This is man talking, ladies. This is man breaking down what they find irresistible. And I want to tell you, your butt and your boobs, none of that really comes in context. Energetically, what pulls men towards you, right? It's not, it's not what you think is obvious. It's part, no, right? So, written by man for you ladies, five feminine qualities that men find irresistible. I sell it on my website. I'll send it for free to anybody who, Andre Coaching One, Irresistible book. Boom. That takes care of the information seekers. Now, on the other side, there's people who have been poking for a long time, for a while, and this is what they tell me. Like when they resonated with what I'm saying. They understand. They saw themselves into the circumstances that they're in. They understand, and they go, "Oh shit, oh shit." So I think this guy knows what he's talking about. Right? So if you're a action taker, I want to call them, it takes a little more courage, but these people are just naturally courageous. They like to lean in. Andre Coaching One at Gmail, in the subject box, write talk now. And what I'll do is I'll send you a link to my calendar. You'll find yourself a spot that's open, and we'll have a conversation like you and I are having right now for about an hour about where you're stuck, where's it stuck, where's the problem. In 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, I can actually decode your childhood trauma. And when you understand that, whether, it kind of liberates you from understanding there's nothing wrong with you. You're just a product of your past. And if we know what went wrong, we could fix it. So this call by itself is it's a $400 call. Like do it like I'll give it away to your curious people. Just take the courage to email me and I'll send you the link and we'll have a conversation. And from there, basically, if you're interested in working with me, then we'll talk about that. But the call alone, whether we work together or not, for some people is extremely liberating. So that's my gift for people who show up for things like this. A podcast, paid attention, poking around at the world and trying to understand something they don't understand. You know what I mean? I always say it's the people who show up who win because it's a fact, right? You have to show up to win. So, and you could also send them to, I'll send you all the links. You have all the links. I'm on all the podcasts. I mean, not podcasts. I'm on all the platforms. My website is projectequinox.net. All my podcasts are on one of those pages. You got blogs, you get so testimonial.
But I know you'll send that to me, and obviously when it's sent to me, I will have it all in the description so people
Yeah,
will see it.
yeah. So all the links are there. So if you want to poke around, there's a lot of poke around at,
And
and
obviously you'll send the email with how to contact you for the book, how to talk, etc.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you want both gifts, tell me you want both. I'll give you. I don't care. Like if you're that person, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right? That's my world.
So obviously 2025 is only just begun.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not as shitty or crappy or whatever you want to
Mm,
describe it as the previous year.
mm.
But obviously there's hope and inspiration. To conclude this interview, what would you say to people listening and watching this now to help them realize 2025 is not as shit as 2024 and years gone by?
Well, this is the way I typically kind of sign off. But for both men and women, right, what's in the culture is a shit show. Everything that's normal is now weird and stupid and, like to be discarded. And everything that's weird and like is the new normal. Well, that doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? So I always say, you be you, like you said, right? That's your motto. Be you, but my assistant, I have a 29-year-old young assistant girl. She wants three kids. She wants a traditional life. She's here in Los Angeles. Do you understand? She cannot say that out loud. They attack her. Girl, we need to talk. You out of your mind. You're better than me. Some guy's slave. Why? Like, she's like, can you just shut up? Can you just like let me be? Right? So she literally cannot speak. She's very feminine. She's very sensitive. So the conflict. So that's the new normal. You know what I mean? So my message for anybody is, what is it that you want? Forget the culture. Forget your mother who's told you that men are dangerous and they're shitty and you should be independent, or your dad, because that happens too. Forget your teachers. Forget your friends who know nothing about men and about relationship. Like, forget all this shit. What do you want? Do you want to be boss babe? You go, girl. We'll talk later. But you want to be a mother and a wife and understand how to do this, right? Um, be that. Be you. Forget the world. Forget the culture. Like, what is it you want, and have the courage to step into it. And there's a lot of
Perfect.
ways to get some help doing that if you don't know how.
Yeah,
So,
I agree totally. Andre, it's been a pleasure
same
hearing
thing,
your
my man.
journey. It's a pleasure talking about what you're passionate about because I do feel that. I actually feel a lot from what you told me
Mm.
today, and I hope listeners listening, watching will get that same feel. I hope they do reach out to you, and if they are listening, watching, if they just put where they heard you from, and that will give credit to say, I remember I was talking to David about that.
Nice.
Yes, it may be shitty, but it was worth it because I got that shit out.
Love it.
So keep up with the good work.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
await the email with the links so I can put that in the description.
Yep,
And thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
absolutely. Thank you for helping me spread the word.
The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.